Last time, Michael learned the secrets of mastering money and protecting it with Pina Sharoni of AIA Australia.
Out of everyone, Michael is one that would understand the importance of a coach and the importance of setting goals.
With these learnings now under his belt, Michael is joined by Pina to hear the big reveal of his financial plan from his advisor, Brad Fensom.
Personal risk insurance is paramount to Michael's financial plan. He needs to use that as a pillar and as a foundation to all advice I give him in the future.
I think probably the most important one is the goal setting. As an athlete, we set short-term goals, intermediate goals and long-term goals, and we've got a very similar process moving forward where I've got some short-term goals that I want to achieve financially and get things up and running, intermediate and then long-term as well into retirement.
He doesn't have those foundations and those protections in place at the moment to protect not just himself but his 3 young children. And once we've got those in place, we can move forward with his wealth creation strategies.
We've brought Michael to Dalton House, where he'll meet with both Pina and Brad to learn how his financial plan has come together. Okay, well, you've heard the masterclass from Pina. Very well delivered, I may add. What do you think?
It was really a great message because it kind of reinforced the fact that, you know, I've got to a stage in my life where I really do have to, you know, put a plan in place and set those goals that, you know, not just to, you know, protect myself, but also my family, my kids, and also the fact that I found an advisor that I've got a great rapport with, because that is really important. He's going to hold my hand for the rest of my life. So that is, it's some great advice.
Pina, you brought up a lot of great insurance questions and scenarios earlier, and I think that needs to be our initial focus. We need to make sure that you're protected. You're the income earner for your household. Think about you and think about the kids and not worry about anyone else. We really need to consider what our short-term objectives are, and as we discussed before, we talked about a property in Sydney that we'd like to have as an established base. Whether we use that as an investment property or a principal place of residence, we still need to fund that base at some point in time. Overlaid with private schooling costs, we need to start preparing for a future purchase as well. Now, you certainly have the earnings capacity to do this. We just need to drill down a little bit further and ensure that your budget is well executed and that you're preparing on a regular basis.
Creates a real discipline then,
It absolutely does. It's like paying a monthly insurance premium or paying your superannuation.
I think because I've never really had an, you know, as you know, I'm not great at administrative tasks, and you know, probably I've had discipline in other areas, but certainly not in keeping track of those the expenditure really. And it's something that will.
But this is the beauty of Brad, though, in that, you know, you've been used to coaches and having experts and people around you and a team around you, and you've got Brad to help you and take care of that stuff for you. So this is the beauty of this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about all these new expenses that are coming into the household. We're going to have educational expenses and a new home expense.
And you want him to put 25 grand a year in super.
Yeah, correct. We need to be able to fund that and also protect that. So,
have you thought about the type of risk protection that Michael needs?
He needs the 4 pillars of risk. He needs to cover his income adequately.
Yes.
We need to revisit income protection as an absolute priority. The life insurance as well. We need to be able to fund that and also protect that. So the life insurance would be put in place to ensure that if something does happen to Michael, at least the kids will have a solid financial foundation through the policy payout.
Yes.
Overlaid with that, I think total permanent disablement is an absolute necessity. We need to ensure that, you know, if something does happen to Michael and he's permanently incapacitated, that we do have that safety net in place so he can live an adequate quality of life.
Yeah.
Finally, critical illness or trauma cover, as it's sometimes called as well, is for those short-term events.
But you know also what tends to happen, and we see it time and time again, is you might suffer a sickness or an illness and you get a lump sum payout through a trauma cover. But then what might actually happen is because of that sickness or that illness or that accident, it might have changed your life in some sort of way. Or if something's happened to your children, it may change your life in some sort of way. So sometimes what tends to happen is it can be challenging from a mental perspective. and that might incapacitate you in some sort of way, in that you're not your 100% there, and that you can't apply yourself into your business.
Yeah.
And so insurances can potentially help you in those circumstances where, okay, you might not you might not reduce your income totally. It might be just only partial reduction in income because you just can't do things the way you would normally do it. So insurance will kick in and give you a partial payment perhaps as well.
Okay. And something that you mentioned too that I haven't really considered was obviously if something happens to my kids who are healthy and active and, you know,
I'm
nothing
so
wrong with
glad.
that.
I'm so glad you got that, Michael.
Yeah, because it's obviously I'd want to, you know, put my time and care for them. So
a recent example that I had where we had a claim, and it was a family protection claim. It actually assisted this particular lady for a year's worth of her income.
Right.
And she needed that because her daughter had leukemia.
Yeah.
And her daughter was in and out of hospitals for that whole year.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah. No, that was
Absolutely fantastic. A real peace of mind.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like everyone's got you covered, Michael. Like Brad's going to get these insurances sorted, and you know, thanks, Pina, because I think it's been a good collaboration with you two actually around business insurance and then all the personal life stuff and the kids. So, yes, you're a very responsible father.
And I'm very fortunate that I've had this team. So I'm looking forward to, you know, setting it all up, and which initially felt very daunting. I had to address all these different issues, but I feel like I've got a much better peace of mind that once it's implemented, that not only I'll be protected, but the kids will be protected as well. And for me, it was getting a better understanding of where the sacrifices have to come from. And, you know, I do like to travel, I do like a certain lifestyle, and how much that has to be pulled back and whatever. So, yeah, getting clarity and visibility with everything, it's what I'm after.
Michael is now well on his way to mastering money, thanks to his team of experts Pina and Brad, and the new financial plan he now has in place. He truly grasps the importance of wealth protection in order to achieve all his financial goals.
It wasn't as daunting as I thought. It was probably one that kind of reinforced my initial thoughts, what I had to do, and I actually feel got a bit of a peace of mind because of the people that are around me. These guys are experts in their field. They know all the different possible scenarios. You're getting that protection, and not just for myself personally, but for my kids and the family for years to come. It's an amazing feeling, actually, to be honest. I've gone through certain different personal circumstances of late that have kind of made me realise that I need to really get a handle on it.
What's rewarding about my job is ultimately what we've done with Michael today is actually engaging the individual to think about future events and to prepare them for the future as well. If the road is a little bit rocky along the way, we have prepared for that, and financially they won't be at disadvantage. I'm very excited to be working with Michael because I do believe he is going to be a completely engaged client and will act upon the recommendations that we give him.
When Michael Klim thinks about money, he's also thinking about his 3 kids. And that's when things like estate planning and wills come into the picture. For more, I have my regular expert, Connie McKees, the CEO of OneView, back with me, and Marie Brownell, who's the Senior Solicitor for Equity Trustees. Welcome to both of you. Now, one thing we're going to talk about is death. Awesome subject for television, but, you know, if one thing's guaranteed is we're all going to die. And I saw a stat that said more than half of Australians don't have a will.
That's right.
This is a problem, right? I know when Michael went through the process with his advisor, he didn't have one either. So, Connie, let's start with you. How important is it to have a will, or what's the implications if you don't?
Well, look, Marie would know more about the implications if you don't, but this is really top of mind for us. My husband and I just went through an update of our will, and I'd forgotten how much I didn't know about how to get your will in a good state. And so many decisions, even small things, like if my husband and I die together, because I'm younger, I'm deemed to have died second. So, Marie, what are the implications? Yeah, exactly. There, see? Right?
And what does that mean if you've died second?
That means that his assets would actually fall to me, and then that has all these other implications for his family and, you know, my family, his brother, all of these kind of things. And I'd completely forgotten about how important it is to get advice off of this. So what are the implications if you don't have a will, Marie?
Look, if you don't have a will, every state and territory in Australia dictates how your estate is going to be distributed. And that may or may not be the way you would like your estate to be distributed, but unless you know what that regime is, your estate could be distributed to anyone, and unless you know what that law is, anyone could benefit or be entitled to your estate.
Well, you see a lot of those big celebrity cases, you know, where everyone's fighting for scraps off the will. And I think even like Aretha Franklin didn't have a will, like people who have serious money.
Yeah.
But, you know, Michael's set himself up so that his kids, they'll all be looked after. But what happens when you're divorced? And I think, Marie, let's start with you, because Michael's divorced, and then suddenly, you know, Connie was talking about, you know, there's implications for each side of the family in wills. What happens then?
Well, when you divorce, you tend to then focus on your children and providing for them. What often sometimes happens when you divorce is you might partner up with someone else, and then you have competing interests around making provision for your new partner and also making sure that your children are well cared for. So you do need to get some advice about those competing interests and how to ensure that everyone is looked after and that you've covered off all the things that you need to cover off.
Especially if they're different ages. And what are the choices people have in order to leave their money?
Look, I think it really depends on the size of the estate, how much money you have to give away, and the circumstances of your beneficiaries. I mean, they're going to be the two major components when you're looking at how much is enough and how much I should leave to my beneficiaries. Obviously, the more you have, there's more to go around, and there might be other options such as charitable giving, philanthropy. So that might be something that, if you're particularly interested in, there might be some options around that. But you really need to look at what the circumstances are of your beneficiaries. You might have beneficiaries that do desperately have a need for that wealth to be passed on to them.
Yeah, so like the average Australian, let's talk about the average Aussie that has their own home and some super, passes away, and, you know, what happens then? How much does it cost to have a will for a start? Because if half of Australians don't have a will, there's an issue, right? And the house and the super may go not where you want it to.
And what about those toolkits that you can buy online for next to nothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what should you pay?
What should...
So he's like, enough, ladies.
Got any questions here to answer? Look, a DIY will or a DIY will can cost $20 or $30, but to have a professionally drafted will, it can cost between, you know, a few $100s to a few $1,000s.
Depending on how big the will is, right?
Well, depending on the circumstances. So if you've got complex financial or personal affairs, you're going to expect to pay more. And
a couple of grand. Okay, well, that's not bad to make sure everything goes where it should.
Look,
but a couple of hundred's even better, right?
Well, a couple of hundred. But
you might miss out things like I just said, where I didn't understand the implications, neither did Michael, about what happens if you die together, the implications of being able to, I guess, ascertain people's different requirements, because even though some kids might get more than others, like, they won't see it that way. They'll say that everybody's equally entitled to the same amount, all of those complexities. We never thought about all those issues. And it doesn't matter how much you have. If somebody doesn't have anything, right, this still becomes an issue on the other side.
And that's what you need to get advice about. And when you see a lawyer that has the expertise in wills and estates law, they'll guide you through that process, they'll give you the advice, and they'll help you along the way. So it's so important to just get the advice and just pay whatever it is that you need to pay to get it done properly.
So when should you do it? Like, Michael's 40, 3 kids. Is now the right time for him? Should he have done it earlier?
Look, absolutely. If you've got children,
okay,
you
so when you
absolutely
have
should have a will. That is just, there's
Or the guys from Atlassian who, you know, had a lot of wealth very early.
Yeah, well, they probably needed a will too. Yeah.
But look, I think every Australian adult should have a will. And if you are an adult and you think, well, I don't really have anything, if you're working, you'll have superannuation.
Correct.
And when you die, there will be a benefit paid out. That benefit can be tens of thousands or it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you don't get some advice around how that benefit can be distributed, then you won't know who's going to end up with that benefit.
And start by nominating a beneficiary.
and having a will to support that nomination.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I'm glad to say Michael's covered, and he actually, you know, heaved a real sigh of relief when he went through the process, because he did get everything sorted, insurances, will, estate planning. But those at home, I know, you know, if it is a couple $100 or a do-it-yourself, download the $20 will, do something to get yourself organised. Connie, this is actually the last episode in our series of Secrets of the Money Masters, and you've been with me all along the way on the desk helping solve our celebrity athletes' problems. What's the one big takeout, you know, going through this that you've found sitting there watching our athletes go through these lessons with advisors and money masters that those at home can take away from this?
Don't be embarrassed to talk about money. You can be, you know, professional. You can be a doctor, lawyer. You can be working, you know, in the church. It doesn't matter what you're doing. The reality is money is a common issue. We need to talk more about it. We need to help each other get through it and have the ability to start training other people early to start early and save regularly.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. And I think the other thing is have some discipline around it. You know, having worked with these athletes, I've really seen they've got a disciplined mindset about their life, and they've taken to these financial plans very quickly because of that. So,
and they've become role models. I can't thank them enough for putting themselves out there, because they believed it was important to teach people about money.
Connie and Marie, thank you very much both for joining me. I'm Vanessa Stoikov. Thanks for watching.